Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. The results email popped and my thumb missed the screen. I locked my office door and killed the lights fast. My heart ran ahead of me like it knew something. I opened the link and watched the page crawl. I'm Alex, 25, and my mouth had gone dry. The dashboard loaded slow, then bright like a police flash. A green bar labeled Parent 1 matched with high confidence. Parent 2 read not detected, and the room swayed. I scrolled twice and breathed through my teeth. A warning banner asked me to confirm my identity. I clicked confirm and waited with my hands shaking. The page refreshed and the warning stayed loud. A knock hit the door hard once, then twice. Team stand up in 2, my manager called through wood. I muttered I'd be there, then closed my eyes. I kept the screen up like a hot stove. New tiles stacked with careful language I suddenly hated. Predicted relationships appeared with neat icons and scores. Close family lit up with one parent only. Half-sibling probability flagged in orange and I froze. I checked the sibling matches with shaky curiosity. 2 names looked like strangers with my exact jawline. Shared centimorgans spoke in numbers that felt final. The graph tightened and my throat did too. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. Pizza Friday tonight, simple and usual like a path. I typed sure, then deleted the word twice. I typed yes and pressed send with a tremor. Footsteps faded down the hall like a countdown. I screenshotted the whole mess, careful and fast. The images saved to a hidden album I never used. I backed them up to a drive and swallowed. The office air felt loud and I needed out. I grabbed my bag and pushed through the corridor. Somebody joked about lunch somewhere behind me. I smiled at nobody and hit the stairs. The parking lot baked and my hands slipped on metal. I sat in my car and locked every door. The engine hummed while I opened the medical traits tab. I checked for inherited risks and found blanks. No paternal markers listed where they should sit. The page offered help articles and a cheerful chatbot. I closed both and opened the raw data file. Letters and numbers marched like codes I couldn't deny. A notification blinked from the company's community board. Welcome, Alex, it chirped with confetti and warmth. I killed the app and stared at my reflection. I didn't recognize the set of my jaw. I typed a message to Maya and erased it. I typed to Jonah and erased that too. I called my own voicemail and listened to silence. I hit end, then hit call again like an ache. A dog barked near the loading ramp and startled me. I locked my phone and counted 4 steady breaths. My seatbelt dug into my shoulder like a reminder. I unlocked the phone and started a new draft. Maya, urgent, need you to check your results. I added a screenshot and hovered over send. I pictured her at work with headphones on. I hit send, then waited for dots that didn't start. Another email arrived from the testing company. Explore your family connections with a friendly wink. They suggested I build a tree with matches. I laughed once and scared myself with the sound. I opened Dad's contact and thumb hovered over call. His last photo showed him fixing a leaky faucet. His forearms were steady and familiar and safe. I put the phone down and gripped the wheel. A second tab offered ancestry breakdowns with bright flags. I ignored percentages and hunted for the loophole. There wasn't one and my stomach rolled slow. My world had a seam and it had split. An older voicemail from Mom sat at the top. Call me when you can, soft and careful. I replayed it twice and listened for hidden meaning. It was just her voice and it still burned. A calendar alert chimed for a dentist appointment tomorrow. I dismissed it and stared at the time. 2 hours had vanished inside a 4-inch screen. I turned the engine off and heard nothing. I tried to pray, then failed at the first word. I tried to count blessings, then reached the wall. I tried to imagine Dad knowing, then couldn't breathe. I cracked the window and counted 3 slow cars. My phone lit up with a new match invite. A private message from someone with our family surname. Think we're related, cheerful and eager like a neighbor. I closed the message and felt my pulse kick. A security guard rolled by and glanced into the car. I lifted the coffee cup to look normal. It was empty and my hands looked older. He rolled on and my body stayed tense. I opened Help again and searched misattributed parentage. Articles used gentle words and careful bullet points. They suggested counseling and patient conversations with family. I saved one, then looked at the sky like it had answers. The gas light blinked with a soft warning tone. I started the engine and pulled into traffic slowly. At the first red light, I opened Messages again. I typed Dad, then deleted the name and sighed. I pulled into a PH Pharmacy and walked inside stiff. I bought a second kit with my card. The clerk smiled small and handed me a bag. My fingers crushed the receipt like a secret. Back in the car, I opened the box. New swabs glared like fresh chalk before a test. I swabbed twice and sealed everything with care. I labeled it and the label shook. I drove to the drop box near the mall. The lid was heavier than I expected today. I held it up with my elbow and breathed. The tube fell inside and echoed like a verdict. A gust sent a flyer against my leg. I kicked it away and checked my phone again. Still no dots from Maya, still no call back. Traffic roared and I felt very small. I opened camera and recorded a short message. If I chickened out later, I wanted proof. I saw the results. I need to talk now. I saved it and didn't send it yet. My manager called and asked about stand-up notes. I lied and said the dentist moved me early. He grunted and told me to upload later. I agreed and my stomach knotted tighter. I drove home because I couldn't think straight. Every stoplight felt like a dare I couldn't ignore. At my building, I parked crooked and didn't care. A neighbor waved and I waved back too hard. Inside, I put my laptop on the counter. I set my phone face down like it might bite. I opened the results again just to suffer. Nothing changed and that felt worse. I drafted a group chat titled Immediate. Maya's contact, Jonah's contact, mine in the middle. Meet tonight, non-negotiable, my place, 7. I hovered, then pressed send with a flat palm. The clock read 5:12 and my heartbeat doubled. I opened the front door for air and control. Down the hall, someone laughed at a show. I closed the door and locked it twice. I poured water and forgot to drink it. I paced 3 lines into the rug and stopped. I stared at Dad's name on my phone again. I typed one word and left it unfinished. My phone buzzed with Maya's answer after a long minute. On my way, short and sharp, no extras. Another buzz from Jonah with a single question. Is Dad okay? And my thumb wouldn't move. The apartment felt like it had shrunk 2 sizes. My laptop chimed with a new connection request. The surname matched a family we knew from church. I closed the lid and leaned on the counter. I listened for my own breath and found it. I counted to 8 and let it out slow. I looked at my hands and saw my father's shape. The doorbell rang early and everything tilted. The bell kept ringing and my hands wouldn't cooperate. I yanked the door open and braced for impact. Maya pushed past me without hello, eyes locked forward. Jonah followed with a backpack clutched tight, jaw grinding. Tell me now, Maya breathed, palms flat on the counter. I held up my phone with the screenshots open. Her gaze flicked across numbers like she was diffusing something. She nodded once, then looked at me for air. Jonah set the backpack down like it weighed double. Is this about the kits? He asked with careful volume. I met his stare and tapped the top picture. He understood too fast and his shoulders jerked. We verify, Maya said, already moving toward the sink. She washed her hands like scrubbing away a choice. New samples, no mistakes this time, no excuses. I grabbed the envelopes and felt heat rise. We worked in silence with quick, clipped movements only. Swabs, tubes, labels, the routine had a grim rhythm. Jonah filmed each step for a clean record later. The 3 packages sat between us like landmines. Who else knows? Maya asked, not looking up yet. Only us, not even a whisper, I answered steady. She exhaled like a runner crossing a line. Good, we control the first conversation, not them. A tapping started on my window from the hallway. Our neighbor glanced in, then walked off without caring. Jonah locked the door and checked the chain twice. The room seemed smaller with those boxes watching. Call her, Maya said, then slid her phone over. Her thumb hovered but didn't press anything yet. She left me a message earlier with a tone. I knew the tone she meant and my stomach turned. I hit call and put it on speaker quickly. The ring felt longer than it should by design. "Hey honey," her voice came light, which was worse. Maya looked at the floor like it could fight back. "We need to come over tonight," I said without decoration. She paused, then offered tomorrow like a polite shield. "Tonight," Maya cut in, voice clean and unshaking. A second pause arrived, then a soft yes landed. Jonah paced, then stopped and leaned on the fridge. She will warn him if she knows our angle. He was right, and the thought burned my throat. We split calls, keep details vague, keep movement fast. I texted Dad with a simple check-in for normalcy. A reply came gentle and familiar with an emoji. My fingers hovered above the invite to meet. I deleted the draft and felt sudden guilt bloom. Maya opened her laptop and logged into her portal. She scrolled through menus I hadn't seen before. "Look here," she whispered and pointed to a match. A close connection appeared with a surname we recognized. We leaned over the screen until our necks hurt. The profile had a profile picture in a hometown. Jonah snapped a screenshot and saved it carefully. Maya clicked the message button and typed 2 lines. "Keep it neutral," I murmured and watched her type. She offered a casual greeting and a question mark. She did not mention us, only a shared relative. The message sent and we waited for the ping. "Transport first," Jonah said and hoisted the boxes carefully. "No detours, we drop them at the kiosk now." I grabbed my keys and felt a plan forming. We stepped into the hall like a unit under pressure. The elevator stalled between floors with a hard jolt. Maya hit the button repeatedly while Jonah swore under breath. "Stairs," I ordered, and we pivoted without discussion. We ran down 3 flights, hearts tripping over rhythm. The lot was busy and headlights kept sweeping across. We climbed into my car with no radio on. The drive stretched short and loud with thoughts crowding. No one spoke until the sign appeared near the curb. We pulled up to the drop and stopped too fast. Maya opened the slot and held it for us. Jonah slid each package in with measured force. They disappeared with a sound that made me flinch. Back in the car, the silence felt heavier again. Maya checked her screen and frowned at the inbox. "Nothing from the match yet, maybe later tonight." "Maybe sooner," I answered, hoping for once. At a red light, my phone buzzed twice rapidly. Dad again with a photo from the kitchen. Pasta boiling and a goofy baseline of normal life. My chest tightened and the light turned green. "Ground rules before we enter the house," Maya said. No accusing words, just questions with evidence ready. Jonah nodded and tightened his grip on the seat. I kept my eyes on the road and breathed. "If they split the room, I follow him," I said. Maya's jaw shifted, then settled with reluctant acceptance. "I stick with her," she answered and checked her watch. Jonah would hover, running interference as needed. We passed the church that used to anchor our weekends. I felt a crack open under that memory's weight. "Focus on tonight," I muttered and pushed it back. We were not kids anymore and it hurt. Maya's phone lit with an unknown number calling. She glanced at us and answered with a calm hello. A male voice asked if this was Maya's email. She moved the phone to speaker and lowered her chin. "This is Reed," the voice added with formal caution. I almost swerved and Jonah grabbed the handle tight. Maya straightened like a wire and kept her tone flat. "We can talk later, we have urgent family business." He hesitated, then offered a time and a place. "Tomorrow afternoon near the highway, neutral and public." "Text the address," she said and ended without goodbye. We stared at the dash as the message arrived. "Do not engage more tonight," I told them firmly. Maya pocketed the phone and nodded without argument. Jonah stared out the window like he spotted a storm. The house drew closer and my pulse followed it. Our group chat pinged with a new alert suddenly. Mom asked if we wanted tea or coffee prepared. Maya typed water and added a period like a blade. I typed same and felt a wave of something cold. We parked 2 blocks away to buy time quietly. "Phone's on record if things turn sideways," Jonah said. We checked battery levels and toggled airplane contingency modes. I stuffed a spare charger into my jacket sleeve. We walked the last stretch with careful, synchronized steps. The porch light clicked on before we reached the gate. Through the window, I saw movement and two silhouettes. My throat closed, then opened because there was no choice. At the door, I raised my hand to knock hard. It swung inward midway, and Dad stood fully still. His eyes went from me to the others quickly. "Come in," barely above a whisper, and the air shifted. We entered as one, and the temperature felt wrong. Mom appeared from the kitchen with glasses clinking. She offered a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maya placed her phone face down but within reach. I stayed standing and set my keys on purpose. The sound snapped like a small warning across tile. "Tonight we need clarity," I said without embellishment. Mom's fingers tightened around a glass that didn't move. "Who else will join us?" Jonah asked from the doorway. Her gaze flicked to the hallway like reflex and back. "No one," she answered, and Dad's jaw twitched once. I watched that twitch and felt the floor tilt. Maya opened a folder with printed screenshots inside. She slid them across with steady hands and controlled breathing. Mom looked, then folded her lips against any reaction. Dad studied the page and did not blink. "We brought more tests," Jonah added with aplomb. "Uncertainty. Independent lab, no sharing accounts, no confusion." Mom started to speak, then stopped and swallowed hard. "We will cooperate," Dad said, and silence cracked. I placed 3 consent forms on the table slowly. Black ink, clear fields, lines for signatures and dates. Mom reached for a pen and paused on contact. "After we sign, you ask whatever you need." I nodded and held her gaze until it stung. Her hand shook once, then steadied on the line. Dad signed without comment and pushed his page forward. Jonah gathered the papers like they might fly. Maya set 3 fresh kits on the table carefully. "We do them now, no delays, no excuses." Mom nodded and wiped her palms down her dress. Dad rolled his sleeves with a movement I knew. We swabbed and sealed under a clock that clicked loudly. Tubes went into bags while everyone watched silently. Maya photographed each label with timestamps visible. I sealed the mailer and pressed it flat. "Before we leave, one straight question," I said. "Is there anything we should prepare for emotionally?" Mom's eyes flicked toward the living room, then away. Her voice came low, "Yes, and I'm sorry already." A car passed outside and lit the hallway briefly. The moment stretched, then snapped back to the room. We gathered our things and stepped toward the door. Tomorrow had teeth, and we were already inside. Mom slid her phone across the table and kept her eyes down. "Ask what you need," she murmured, fingers laced tight. The room held its breath like it expected impact. I leaned in and tapped her call history for answers. "Who used this number last night?" Her lips pressed thin, then parted just enough. "A volunteer from years ago reached out again." Dad's shoulders rose and locked, and my pulse hammered. "Open messages," Maya said with steady control. Mom unlocked the screen and turned it toward us. A thread near the top showed missed calls and short notes. One name sat initialed, not saved fully, which stung. "Why is that thread pinned?" Jonah asked without blinking. Mom unpinned it with a quick swipe like surrender. A new alert flashed from the same contact as if waiting. Maya flipped the phone face down and looked at us. "Ground rule holds," I reminded, voice low and firm. "No private calls tonight, no explanations sent out." Dad nodded once and moved a chair back 2 inches. That chair scrape felt louder than any speech could. I drew a simple line on a notepad for order. "Timeline, first outreach this month, then what?" Mom swallowed and pointed to the last 2 dates. 2 calls, no meetups, only apologies and pressure. "Pressure for what?" Maya asked while rubbing her palms. "To speak before you heard something else first." Dad stared at the wall like it might respond. "We are hearing it now," I said and waited. Mom lifted her gaze and held it on me. There was someone who never left the perimeter. My skin prickled and Jonah shifted his stance once. "Name," I said, and my pen hovered over paper. Her mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "Read," she pushed out, and the table changed temperature. Maya's phone buzzed in her pocket like timing. She didn't look, and that told me plenty. Dad stood and walked to the sink like routine. Water ran, then stopped, then ran again in bursts. He dried his hands on his shirt like default. "I am staying in this room," he finally said. "We meet him tomorrow, neutral place," Maya added immediately. No detours, no memory walks, straight business. Mom nodded and touched the edge of a placemat. Her fingers trembled once, then steadied like a decision. Tonight we set limits, I continued with care. No stories to soften anything, only verifiable facts. Dad exhaled and took the chair opposite me. Fine, ask what secures you, he said and faced forward. Are there any legal complications we should anticipate? Mom's eyelids fluttered and she looked toward the hall. Nothing formal, only choices I deferred until now. Those choices sat between us like gear left running. Financial involvement, Jonah pressed with a small tilt. No, Mom said, quick and certain like a switch. Dad's hands unclenched just a fraction of an inch. The fraction still felt like a cliff edge. The landline rang once, then stopped, then rang again. We all looked at it like it might burst. Dad lifted the receiver and held it near. He listened, then placed it down with care. Wrong number, he said, but his jaw worked. Maya glanced at me and raised an eyebrow. I walked over and checked the caller ID quietly. Blocked twice, then silence, which said enough. My phone vibrated with a text from an unknown contact. Tomorrow moved earlier, the message read with coordinates. Maya's screen lit with the same details seconds later. Jonah's phone stayed dark, which felt strategic and pointed. Do not reply, I told the room without blinking. We keep our plan and hold the time. Dad reached for his wallet and stopped mid-motion. We cover the check if he tries anything, he muttered. Mom pushed the glass away and folded her arms. I can answer 3 more direct questions tonight. Her limit felt calculated, but it moved us forward. Maya counted on her fingers like a referee. Does he know about the tests? Mom shook her head once and kept watching us. Does he think he might be connected to us? She hesitated, then nodded with a tiny grimace. Is anyone else looped in besides him? No, she answered, crisp and without decoration. I scanned her face for cracks and found none. 3 questions spent and the air tightened again. Jonah unzipped his backpack and took out a small recorder. Consent to record tonight's agreements, he asked evenly. Dad lifted 2 fingers in approval with no drama. Mom stared at the light, then gave a single nod. I spoke into the mic and kept it simple. Parties present, no external contact until after tomorrow, meeting fixed. Maya added, all devices on airplane at 9. We watched the seconds flip until the hour landed. Phones chirped as airplane icons appeared across screens. Dad powered off his cell completely and set it aside. I followed and the room felt quieter in a different way. Mom placed hers next to the stack like a truce. We go in pairs tomorrow, Maya outlined with crisp edges. 2 inside, 1 outside with eyes and exit plan. Jonah tapped the recorder once and pointed at the door. Check the driveway now, then we finish here. I stepped onto the porch and scanned up the street. A car idled 2 houses down with no lights. I memorized the plate and snapped a photo quickly. The engine cut, then restarted, then rolled away slow. Back inside, I locked the deadbolt and met their eyes. Someone is monitoring the house, I said flat and clear. Dad moved to the window and lifted the edge of the shade. He dropped it and nodded like he had expected it. Which entrance tomorrow? Maya asked, pen on paper. Rear door, kitchen side, cameras facing the lot, I replied. Jonah adjusted his cap like a switch into work mode. Mom watched him and a flinch crossed her mouth. Last piece, I said, leaning forward over the table. If he addresses me by a nickname, we stop. If he claims medical emergencies, we pause and verify first. Maya underlined pause twice and the ink pressed deep. Dad stood again and walked toward the hall. Slowly. Where are you going? I asked without moving my feet. Getting a set of spare keys for you 3. He returned with a ring and placed it center table. I picked them up and felt their weight like duty. Maya pocketed them with a curt nod and tight lips. Jonah glanced toward the front like he heard something shifting. The house seemed to lean and I leaned back. Mom reached across and took my wrist lightly. I know I do not get forgiveness on demand. Her grip warmed my skin and complicated my breathing. Tomorrow you get the full truth, she whispered and pulled back. We stood and chairs scraped again like a chorus. Maya collected the envelopes and the recorder with care. Jonah cracked the door and checked the hallway one more time. I exhaled and prepared to cross whatever waited outside. At the threshold, Dad spoke our names in order. Same plan if we get separated tomorrow, he added. Maya squeezed my shoulder once and Jonah lifted his chin. We stepped into the night and the street listened. We reached the lot early and the car from last night waited. Jonah parked 2 rows back and kept the engine running. Maya checked exits and clipped her hair behind one ear. I scanned plates and spotted the match we captured yesterday. A man stepped out near the entrance and watched the doors. He checked his watch twice and adjusted his stance. Maya bumped my elbow once, then nodded toward him. Eyes open, she whispered, and my mouth went dry. We split as planned, 2 inside and 1 outside. Jonah stayed with the car and angled his mirror. Maya and I walked in with calm, slow breaths. The host lifted a hand and I kept moving. Reed stood already, hands visible, posture careful. He looked past me first, then focused sharp. Thank you for coming, he offered, voice low and steady. Maya sat without returning it and I followed. No small talk, I started, palms flat on the table. We need 3 things: proof, history, boundaries. Reed nodded once and slid a sealed envelope across. Consent for testing today, he said and waited. Maya checked the form and traced each line. Independent chain, no portal links, no aliases. He tapped the signature field and kept his gaze neutral. I brought identification and a business card, he added. I kept the card on the table untouched. Before signatures, one answer: did anyone tell you first? His jaw flexed and he adjusted the sleeve. A letter arrived months ago with no return address. Maya leaned forward like she might pounce. Content, she asked, voice clipped, eyes on his face. Apologies, warnings, a request to avoid contact, he replied. The date on his phone matched our recent chaos. Who mailed it? I pressed and watched his eyes shift. I assumed your mother, the handwriting looked familiar. Maya tilted her head and measured each syllable. It wasn't her, she avoids paper when cornered. A server hovered, then drifted away without interrupting. Reed waited until the path cleared again. I also received 1 anonymous call last week. Male or female? I asked, and he hesitated. Male, said not to show, mention lawyers. Maya flicked me a glance and my stomach tensed. Jonah's text buzzed my watch with a short update. Same car circling, 2 loops now, his message read. We are not dragging court into this today, I said. Reed lifted both hands slightly like a surrender sign. No litigation today, only facts and a sample. Maya set the recorder between us and clicked it on. State your name and purpose, she instructed with authority. He complied with each word clear and measured. He added consent for recording without hesitation. Maya's finger hovered above stop, then stayed. Family medical history, I prompted, heartbeat thudding too fast. Reed unfolded a list he had prepared and memorized. Early heart issues on my father's side, aortic problems. He touched his chest once, then dropped his hand. Any confirmed diagnoses? Maya asked, pen already moving. 2 relatives with Marfan, 1 cousin with valve surgery. He slid copies of summaries across the table. I scanned the bullet points and felt my spine tighten. I texted Jonah 1 word: ambulance. He replied instantly, on standby, location pinned. Maya underlined cardiac twice and drew a hard bracket. Reed watched her pen like it might be a knife. Why now? I asked and kept my tone even. You could have stayed away and avoided fallout. He shifted, then took a careful breath as if rehearsed. Because secrets breed leverage and I want none. Leverage from who? Maya challenged and kept her gaze locked. The caller implied he could ruin me at work. He glanced toward the door like a practiced habit. I prefer daylight conversations to threats, he added. My watch buzzed again with Jonah's message. Circling car stopped near the rear entrance now. Maya slid me a spare key under the table. I pocketed it and felt metal bite. Skin. Testing now, I said and opened the kit. Reed leaned forward and followed every instruction precisely. We sealed the swab with date and initials. Maya photographed each step with timestamps visible. Backup sample too, she added and pulled a second. He complied, no fuss, no delay, eyes steady. Courier will collect in 20 minutes, she said. He nodded and checked his phone only once. Boundaries, I returned to the list and steadied myself. No direct outreach to our parents until we finish. No social posts, no hints to extended circles. He agreed without bargaining, which unsettled me more. Money, he asked quietly, and the word tightened my jaw. We are not here for payments or debts, I answered. We are here for truth and safety. He looked relieved in a way I could not place. Maya switched tracks with surgical timing. Did you meet anyone else connected to us recently? Reed's eyes flicked down before returning to center. A woman approached me outside a store 2 days ago. My pulse climbed a notch as he continued. She asked if I planned to attend today. She used our last name and yours, he added. Maya's grip hardened around the pen until it squeaked. Describe her, I asked, bracing for the answer coming. Short, dark hair, confident, no hesitation in speech. He looked past me like seeing her again in real time. She knew our church schedule and my volunteer hours. Maya and I traded a look across the recorder. Only a handful of people knew both those details. Jonah's earlier note about surveillance slammed into place. Someone inside our circle was engineering the pace. The server returned with water and a tight smile. Reed waited until she left, then leaned in closer. I asked her name, she gave none. She warned me to prepare counsel and leave town. Which you didn't, I said, and he gave a quick shrug. I am done letting fear set my calendar. He tapped the envelope again, insistence cutting through air. Sign and I will sign, and we move. Maya read every clause, then reworded 2 lines. Reed accepted the edits with a brief nod. We signed in sequence with clear strokes and steady hands. My name looked strange next to his on paper. My watch buzzed with a new alert from Jonah. Third loop, driver on a call, back window cracked. Maya angled her head toward the entrance and stood. Short break, she murmured and stepped outside in control. I stayed with Reed and kept the recorder live. He folded his hands and stared at the envelope. If this confirms what it might, what do you want? Access, I said, surprising myself with how fast it came. Access to what? He asked gently, eyebrows lifting slightly. Medical files, a conversation, a plan for emergencies. I kept my voice level because panic wastes breath. His shoulders dropped a notch and he nodded once. Maya returned, hair slightly windblown, lips pressed thin. Car belongs to a retired officer, she reported flatly. Plates clear, behavior not casual, eyes on doors. Reed's jaw tightened and he looked toward the rear. I will handle my own protection, he said after a beat. You protect your home and your father. The word father landed, sharp and careful, between us. I didn't flinch, and that felt like growth and grief. The courier entered and approached our table quietly. Maya verified identifiers and transfers with professional calm. Packages vanished into a secure pouch with a click. The courier left, and it felt like we crossed something. Reed slid a small stack of cards across. Cardiologist, genetic counselor, emergency contact, answered 24/7. Maya took photos and pocketed the originals. I saved the numbers to a hidden list immediately. One final point, he added, hands still visible. I will not contact you until you reach out. This is not abdication, this is respect. His voice thinned slightly on that last word. I stood and the chair feet made a harsh scrape. We will be in touch after results and tonight's talk. Maya rose beside me and closed the recorder. Reed stayed seated and watched us walk away. Outside, the circling car idled near the exit ramp. Jonah pulled up from the far row and blocked its line. The driver glanced at us once, then rolled forward slowly. I lifted my phone like I was filming and he turned. We climbed in, doors shut, locks clicked with a rhythm. Maya exhaled finally and stared straight ahead. Someone is feeding both sides to keep us reactive. Jonah merged into traffic and the car behind shadowed. We adjust, I said, and my voice surprised me steady. Switch vehicles at Dad's, use the side street entrance. Maya nodded, already mapping turns and fallback points. Jonah checked the mirror and changed lanes without signal. Another text came through from an unknown contact. Reschedule requested, sooner, different cafe, no lawyer. Maya looked at me, then at the road ahead. Trap, she whispered. And my chest agreed. We took the long route and lost the tail finally. Jonah cut the lights half a block from home. Maya scanned the porches while I keyed the door. The deadbolt turned and I felt something settle. Inside, the landline blinked with a new message waiting. I pressed play and stood very still. A male voice filled the room with a false smile. Postpone your meeting, or everyone learns everything at once. Maya stopped the tape and closed her eyes briefly. Jonah checked the windows and tested each latch. I rewound and recorded the message onto my phone. We had our threat and we had the clock. We split again, I said, the plan forming mid-word. 2 head back to Mom, 1 stays with Dad. Phone's off again at 9 sharp, Maya added. Jonah pointed at the recorder and I hit save. I pocketed the copy and felt the edges dig. We stepped back into the hallway like we belonged there. My heartbeat settled into a new, colder rhythm. We had moved from discovery to defense and it showed. We split at the corner and I took the house. Maya headed for Mom with the recorder in her sleeve. Jonah looped back to cover Dad and watch the phone. I walked fast and rehearsed questions that tasted like steel. Dad opened before I knocked and stepped aside. He looked at my face and knew I was loaded. Kitchen, he said softly, and I followed without arguing. The landline blinked once, then died like it was listening. We got a threat, I started, palm flat on the table. I played the message and watched his mouth harden. He asked for the copy and held out his hand. I sent it and kept my eyes on him. I want your version before tonight gets noisy. He pulled out a chair and lowered himself carefully. No speeches, he said, then tapped the tabletop twice. I'm aware more than you think and it changes this. Who is making those calls? He rubbed his temple and gave me a name. A church board member with a retired badge and reach. Thinks he protects reputations by scaring people quiet. Is Mom part of that? I asked, body tight. He shook his head once and stared past my shoulder. She never asked him to harass you. That man freelances troubles when secrets smell like leverage. Why did he target us already? Because he watches attendance and donation patterns obsessively. Because I asked for a hearing next month. His eyes lifted to mine and something braced. A hearing for what? For stepping down, he answered, voice clear and unshaken. I plan to resign regardless of whatever comes. Your safety first, my title can burn. The door opened without warning and Mom walked in. She froze at the table and set her purse down. We are not running from this, she said, chin squared. I felt a shift and the room tightened. Maya slipped in behind her with quick eyes. She gave me a micro nod that meant recorder ready. Jonah's text appeared with a single line of status. Perimeter clear, I'm 5 minutes away. No padding, I told both of them, voice steady. Facts only, direct answers, we will handle the fall. Mom drew a breath and placed both hands out. Then we lock the doors and I speak. Start with timeline, Maya said, pen already moving. Mom named the years and didn't blink. Stop when Jonah arrived, she added, voice measured. She didn't decorate anything and Dad didn't interrupt. Did he ever come inside this house? No, she answered and her jaw tightened. Neutral locations, separate phones, separate calendars. She looked at Dad once, then away. Who knew besides you? I asked, watching for flinches. No confidence, only me and him and mistakes. Someone else knows now, Maya added without looking up. A woman approached Reed and used our last name. Mom swallowed and answered slowly like crossing ice. She teaches youth choir and sports a permanent smile. She has keys to closets and collects gossip like trophies. Dad exhaled hard through his nose and looked at the ceiling. Is she tied to the retired officer? Her cousin, Mom said, and the line connected. Holiday barbecues, shared group chats, mutual favors. Maya wrote one word and underlined it twice. Jonah entered and locked the deadbolt with a sharp click. He scanned the windows and moved to the hall quietly. Rear alley clear, one car slowed then moved on. He leaned against the wall and folded his arms. Next piece, I said, refusing to stall. Have you two ever tested privately before this? Dad looked at his hands, then up again. Yes, once when Maya was 3. The air cut in half and we went still. Result. Not matching, he answered, and the floor shifted under me. He kept going. I decided to raise first and question later. You both kept that from us for decades. Mom faced him, eyes burning, and owned it. I begged him to destroy the paper, and he did. He chose us over answers, and I lived with it. My chest tightened and then something up. And not comfort, not rage, something like grief with edges. He reached across the table and did not touch me. I never wanted you to carry my scars. Why tell us now? Maya asked, voice calm but sharp. Because the machine is rolling and you need context. Because safety is built on truth, not wishes. He lifted his chin and I believed him. Did you test Jonah quietly too? Dad shook his head and met Jonah's stare head on. No more secrets after that first burn. I chose presence over papers and I stuck to it. Then answer this, I pushed, because we were here. If these new results confirm nothing matches, what then? I stand where I have always stood, he replied. Front door bills, broken pipes, every hard day. Mom's phone buzzed against the table and crawled. She glanced and didn't touch it. Maya reached over and flipped its screen down. Airplane on, she ordered, and Mom obeyed. Threat caller, Jonah said, pointing at the landline. I hit play again and let the voice pour out. Dad listened with eyes flat like a locked door. I'll deal with him before morning, he said finally. No solo hero moves, I countered, lifting a hand. We bring Reed's lawyer to the meeting. Maya nodded and opened a new note quickly. Neutral counsel, witness present, simple agenda. Health next, Maya snapped back to structure. Any surgeries, any fainting spells, any weird emergencies. Mom looked at her hands and admitted one incident. A sudden hospital visit last spring that she hid. What was it? An aortic tear alert that turned out to be nothing. Her voice wavered on nothing, and I saw fear there. Dad's chair scraped as he stood and paced twice. Cardio evaluations for all three of us, Maya said. First appointment tomorrow morning, early. Jonah pointed at the clock and raised 2 fingers. 2 hours until the courier window closes for add-ons. We still have backup kits at my place, I said. Grab them and run a parallel check. Jonah reached for his keys and looked at Maya. She nodded once and he slipped out fast. Mom reached toward me and stopped halfway. I loved you every day, she said, voice raw. I will face whatever you need me to face. I didn't answer, and that silence did the work. Dad stopped pacing and touched the back of my chair. I will not let anyone push you around. Not the board, not the badge, not the choir. His tone carried weight, and I leaned into it. Maya closed her notebook and lifted the recorder. We locked tonight's terms, she said with finality. Full disclosure at dawn if new pressure comes. Emergency call tree updated and tested. We all took a breath at the same time. It didn't bind us back to normal. It created a small platform big enough to stand. We stood on it anyway and prepared for impact. The doorbell rang in a single urgent burst. Dad held up a palm and moved toward the peephole. A voice called our last name with authority and impatience. Maya pressed the recorder on and angled toward the hallway. Identify yourself, Dad called through the door, tone iron flat. Community liaison, the man responded, voice confident and clipped. Open for a quick welfare check and chat. Maya mouthed no and I nodded hard. Warrant, I said loud enough to carry. Silence for a beat, then a cough of annoyance. No warrant, just neighborly concern this evening. Dad smiled without warmth and stepped back from the door. Come back with paperwork, he replied, voice cool. Footsteps retreated down the steps slower than necessary. We waited until the gate clicked, then exhaled. Someone wanted inside without writing anything down. My phone vibrated with a new alert. Lab received Reed's sample, the portal showed with a banner. Processing expedited, it added, and my stomach flipped. Maya peered at the screen and flicked my wrist gently. Stay focused on what we control, she whispered. Control is thin tonight, I answered and closed it. Mom wiped her palms on her skirt and steadied. We need to talk about the letter he mentioned. That anonymous note months back, I said, recalling the line. Mom nodded and looked between us like choosing a witness. It was from me, she admitted, each word heavy. Not signed, meant to stop him from contacting you. Maya stared, then tapped the table twice like a gavel. You moved pieces without our knowledge and timed nothing. That created the vacuum this bully filled. Mom swallowed and accepted the hit without deflecting. Jonah returned with a canvas bag in quick steps. He set 3 kits down and checked the locks again. We swabbed in sequence and sealed with clean motions. He videoed the chain and marked each envelope. Courier cut off in 40, he said, looking at his watch. I'll sprint the drop and circle back around. I pressed the door remote to pop the outer latch. He vanished into the night like a runner with a baton. Dad leaned on the counter and watched us work. This is the last night of guessing, he said. We will live with data and choose our shape. His voice didn't shake and mine almost steadied. Maya's screen lit with a text from a blocked number. Stop recording your conversations, it warned, cruel and smug. She screenshot it and forwarded to a secure folder. We all looked at each other and that was enough. I opened the group chat and typed a single instruction. No one opens the door for anyone not named. Code phrase stays in play, Maya added, fingers flying. Dad repeated it out loud like a drill before a storm. The landline rang again and cut off midway. Voicemail captured a new threat in the same voice. Clock's ticking, cancel tomorrow or enjoy the fireworks. I saved it and filed it beside the first. Mom leaned forward and finally told us something new. I gave that officer a donation last year. In exchange for covering a noise complaint here. The room went still and then Dad turned very slowly. You never told me that, he said, tone low. She nodded and looked sick with shame and resolve. I thought it would protect us from scrutiny. It probably bought us exactly the opposite. Maya drew an arrow on the page and circled the name. That's his leverage path, one recorded favor creates appetite. We cut him off and add a witness every time. She looked up and we all nodded. We moved through the house and documented entry points. Latch, bolt, window stops, camera angles. Jonah texted that the courier pickup succeeded. He added he was looping twice before coming back in. I stepped onto the porch for a minute of air. A woman across the street lifted her phone and filmed. She turned away when I stared back and didn't hide it. I memorized her coat and the way she walked. Back inside, Dad pulled a folder from the drawer. He placed a letter on the table with my name. I wrote this last week in case I froze. He slid it toward me and pulled his hand back. I didn't open it. I tucked it into my pocket and let it press against me. Thank you, I said and meant it. He looked relieved in a quiet, complicated way. Maya set 2 index cards in the center. Roles for tomorrow, she announced, voice all edges. I handle logistics and counsel, Jonah patrols outside. You sit across from him and drive the questions. I can do that, I said and felt a dry calm. Mom watched me like she wanted to argue, then didn't. She folded her hands and whispered the same sentence again. I will answer under oath if asked. The clock rolled toward 9 and we lined up phones. Airplane toggled on across the row like a drill finish. Jonah slipped back through the door with a nod. All clear for now, the street is quieter. We gathered in the front room and stood in a rough circle. No prayers, no speeches, just a shared beat of breath. Mom reached out and stopped just short of touching Dad. He didn't move toward her and the gap stayed. I looked at the 3 of them and felt the shape forming. Not the one I grew up picturing, but real enough. Built under heat and pressure and blunt disclosure. Strong because nothing soft is holding it together. The doorbell rang one last time before quiet hours. Jonah stood ready with the recorder and the script. Name, he called, and a woman supplied the choir director, S. We brought muffins, she added, bright and false. No visitors tonight, I answered, breath steady. See you Sunday, she sang through the wood, cheerful and sharp. Footsteps faded and a car door thumped too hard. We listened until the street settled and stayed alert. I went to the sink and ran water over my wrists. Not for cleansing, for control and rhythm. I looked at my reflection and saw both men behind me. One by choice, one by biology, both watching. Tomorrow would carry knives and signatures and exits. Tonight carried truth and rules and taped messages. We locked the door and moved to our posts. No illusions left, only the work of staying together under pressure. My watch buzzed before sunrise and the portal banner flashed. Update available, bright and blunt, like a slap across focus. I woke Maya on the couch with a tap. Jonah sat up stiff, already reaching for his phone. We gathered around the screen and held our breath. I opened the report and scrolled to relationships. A new tile loaded slow, then locked into place. Paternal match identified, high confidence, the line read and burned. Maya's finger hovered over the details, then pressed. 3 profiles appeared with percentages tight and unforgiving. My name first, then hers, then Jonah's at the bottom. All 3 matched to read, and the room shifted hard. No denials left, Jonah whispered, eyes on the numbers. He looked toward the hall where Dad slept light. Maya closed the laptop like she was sealing a wound. We tell them now, then we move, she said. We found Dad at the table with 2 mugs. He read our faces and didn't ask anything soft. I turned the laptop and let the screen speak. He nodded once and his hand tightened on the handle. Plan holds, he said, steady like a metronome. We meet read at noon with counsel present. Health checks first because that cannot wait, Maya added. Jonah grabbed his jacket and opened the door fast. The clinic lobby clicked through patients like a machine. Maya signed us in and pushed our names forward. Nurses moved with clean efficiency and 0 patience for drama. I liked the pace because it forced us forward. They took vitals and ordered imaging without discussion. Family risk triggers enhanced screening, the text stated, businesslike and brisk. I lay still and listened to the hum talk. I focused on counting breaths, 4 in, 6 out, repeat. Maya finished first and returned with a measured face. We will get callbacks this afternoon, she said low. Jonah emerged next and stretched like shaking off nerves. I stepped back into the hall and felt my phone buzz. Unknown number again, message short and pushy. Cancel the noon meeting or the board hears tonight. I showed it to Maya and waited for her eyes. She screenshotted and forwarded it to Reed's lawyer. We reached the parking structure and found a surprise. The retired officer leaned against our car and smirked. He greeted us by last name like he owned it. Jonah pulled his phone out and hit record. Welfare check, the officer announced, voice bright and sarcastic. We received a concern about possible elder abuse. Maya laughed once sharp, then stepped forward 2 paces. Cite the report number or step away, she said. He wagged a finger like we were unruly kids. Maybe I should peek inside your trunk, he added. Dad joined us from the elevator, posture quiet and loaded. Back up, he told the man, eyes never blinking. The officer looked amused and tapped his pocket slowly. I raised my phone so the camera was obvious. Everything on record, I said, level and bored. His smile thinned and he shifted his feet. A sedan pulled in fast and parked beside us. A woman stepped out with a briefcase and purpose. Counsel, she introduced herself, flashing credentials in one motion. She turned to the officer and spoke like cutting wire. You are trespassing and attempting intimidation without cause. I recommend you leave before I file complaints. He chuckled, then noticed the badge number on her folder. The chuckle. He died and he backed up 2 steps. See you around, he muttered and walked toward the ramp. Maya tracked him until he vanished behind a pillar. Jonah filmed the exit and captured the plate clearly. The lawyer exhaled and faced us without ceremony. Your noon venue is secured and neutral, she said. No phones allowed inside the conference room. She handed me a printed agenda and a pen. Stick to it and we can contain this, she added. We drove to the neutral site and checked in. Security scanned the briefcase and waved us through deliberately. Reed waited in a glass room with hands folded. He stood when we entered and looked from face to face. No speeches, I started and placed the results down. He read them once, then again without blinking. His eyes flicked to Jonah's name and tightened. I knew it might be true, but not for him. Mom arrived with shoulders squared and mouth set. She closed the door behind her and faced us. I will answer precisely and then accept consequences. Dad pulled out a chair and sat near the end. Maya set the recorder down and asked for consent. Everyone agreed and the light clicked red. She pointed to the line about all 3 matches. Your timeline was incomplete, she said, each word controlled. Mom nodded and didn't reach for excuses. I ended it later than I told you. Fear kept moving the finish line, she added. I held the table edge and forced my jaw still. Did you ever warn him about us? Maya pressed. No, Mom answered, firm and cold as a verdict. I tried to cut him out of your orbit. Then I panicked when he found the edges again. Reed cleared his throat and opened his folder. He removed a short letter and pushed it across. I wrote this last month to request a conversation. I never sent it because I didn't want pressure. The lawyer read it, then handed it to Maya. No demands, no threats, a request and a boundary. Keep that copy, the lawyer advised, eyes on Mom. Proof of intent matters when rumors start running. Jonah leaned forward with his hands clasped tight. Were there any health events we should know? He asked. Reed shook his head and named 2 distant cases. We monitor yearly, I can add you 3. Dad adjusted his chair and spoke without looking away. There will be no switching of titles here. I remain their father in practice and in home. Reed held his gaze and nodded once slow. I felt the weight in my chest lighten a notch. Not gone, just manageable under structure and rules. Maya flipped the page to the boundaries list. No private contact without a third person, she read. Reed agreed and added his own line calmly. No public announcements or posts for 90 days. We handle the medical first and the board second. The lawyer slid a form across to capture that. A knock landed on the glass like a warning. The security chief peered in and gestured me outside. I stepped into the hall while everyone watched silently. He pointed to a woman waiting by the elevator. Choir director, clipboard in hand, smile tight and practiced. I brought a peace offering, she chirped with fake warmth. I stood still and let the silence chew through her. She glanced past me, trying to see into the room. Meeting is private, I told her, voice steady. She tilted her head like a puzzled host at brunch. People worry when families whisper behind closed doors. People gossip louder when leaders disappear from services. Leaders resign for many reasons, I replied evenly. Concern can be voiced through proper channels. She smirked like she had a card I missed. Proper channels already called me this morning, she said. The security chief stepped closer and took her badge. Appointment required, he stated and guided her back. She left a flyer on the table and retreated. I picked it up and saw a hand-scribbled note. Midnight deadline, the note warned, underlined twice. Cancel the meeting with him or the board convenes. I photographed it and texted the image to our chat. Maya responded with one word, documented. Back in the room, the lawyer updated the agenda. Add an action item to notify the authorities later. Interference with a legal consultation is actionable. Reed signed the boundary sheet with a steady hand. We moved into logistics like soldiers packing gear. Emergency contacts, calendar blocks, preferred clinics. Dad offered names for counselors who kept confidentiality. Maya listed options and drew boxes around key threads. My phone vibrated with a clinic callback mid-flow. I answered on speaker and braced for impact. EKG normal, imaging flagged one anomaly for follow-up. Silence pressed, then the tech added, schedule within 2 weeks. Maya squeezed my arm once and released. Booked before noon, she said, already typing. Jonah checked his voicemail and frowned. Another threat recorded, this time with a different cadence. The lawyer listened and raised an eyebrow. Ow. Same voice modulator, she observed, tone clinical and cool. Different script writer, she added, tapping the table twice. We widened the complaint to conspiracy. We broke for 5 minutes to breathe and hydrate. I stood by the window and watched the street churn. Reed joined me and kept a respectful distance. Whatever you need from me, ask directly. I need you to stay predictable, I answered. No surprises, no gifts, no public scenes. He nodded with both eyes and stepped back. It felt like a contract signed without paper. We reconvened and executed the testing consent stack. Courier arrived, verified identities, and left with a sealed pouch. The lawyer checked the time and closed her case. We moved to the next front, she said. The next front was the board hall 2 blocks away. Dad asked us to stay outside the main room. Maya argued for a minute, then relented with a sigh. Keep your phone on vibrate, she warned. We watched through the glass as the board assembled. Choir director at the edge, whispering into her hand. The retired officer leaned in and grinned toward the door. The chair opened the session and called for statements. Dad stood and delivered a short letter without flourish. I resign as of today, personal reasons, no debate. He handed copies and folded his hands behind him. The chair accepted them and looked around for protest. The officer raised a finger and tried to stall. Rumors require investigation before acceptance, he announced. The chair asked for evidence and he produced none. The choir director shifted, clearly annoyed by the stumble. Maya nudged me and mouthed now. I walked in with the lawyer and the recorder. Before any smear we introduce formal counsel, she stated. She listed the harassment incidents and the midnight note. The room changed temperature in a single breath. The chair straightened and asked for the threats. We played both voicemails into the microphone. Faces went pale as the modulated voice filled the space. The officer pretended ignorance and laughed too loudly. The choir director looked at the floor and fussed. The chair called for a recess and signaled security. 2 ushers escorted both of them out. Dad folded his letter and placed it in his pocket. He walked past the table and paused beside us. Time to go, he said, eyes on the exit. We left while voices swelled behind the door. Outside, the sky looked washed out and indifferent. We stood on the steps and counted down our tasks. Maya listed doctor appointments in a calm cadence. Jonah checked doors and scanned for familiar vehicles. Mom stood apart with her arms crossed firm. She watched Dad's profile and made a choice. I will start calling people tonight in my voice. No more buffering, no lies by omission. Reed joined us at the corner with careful steps. He didn't try to stand too close or too far. I will keep distance until you invite otherwise, he said. Dad looked at him and gave a single nod. We walked to the car and loaded in silence. Phones buzzed with new calendar confirmations and reminders. The threat messages stopped, which felt loud in a new way. Silence can also be a tactic, and we knew it. At home, the landline blinked again with a message. I played it and braced for the modulated growl. Instead, a clear voice delivered a simple sentence. I was wrong, I will not call again. Maya saved it and flagged the timestamp. Jonah unplugged the line entirely and coiled the cord. Dad poured water and handed us each a glass. We drank like people finishing a race we never started. My phone buzzed one more time with the clinic number. Follow-up scheduled tomorrow, bring a first-degree relative. I looked at Dad, then at the closed front door. I'm going, he said without waiting for my question. We ordered food and ate without background sound. We broke bread like a team that had survived drills. Mom cleared the plates and came back with steady hands. Thank you for not abandoning me, she whispered. I nodded once and kept my eyes on the table. Forgiveness was not the word yet, and everyone felt it. What we had was presence under pressure and rules. Sometimes that is larger than anything soft and easy. A car idled outside, then rolled away without stopping. Jonah checked the camera feed and relaxed 1 inch. Maya set alarms for morning and stacked the folders. Dad stood up and looked at the door like a guard. I went to my room and opened his letter. Short, plain, direct, a promise without decoration. If I ever doubted my place, read this line. I read it twice and the line held. My phone chimed with one last alert from the portal. Additional relatives matched, 2 new first cousins identified. Maya's message followed a second later with a plan. We breathe tonight, we handle the rest tomorrow. I returned to the front and stood with them. 4 people in a room that had seen too much. We didn't hug, we didn't we stayed ready. The doorbell rang once and every head turned.